Jordana here. Betty White, our beloved Betty White, passed away last year just before she turned 100. My goodness, everyone's favorite grandmother. Now, everyone's talking about her estate plan because her $10 million mansion in Brentwood is up for sale. Now, Betty White didn't have any kids, so it's unclear who will inherit the sizable estate. She does have 3 stepchildren from her marriage to Alan Ludden. They could have gotten a large portion, and that's okay that we don't know. That's something that's very private. But what we do know is Betty White's attorney has said she did have an estate plan. And when I read that the $10 million mansion was up for sale, I continued on and I thought, oh, okay. Whew, she had an estate plan. It wasn't like a Prince situation where people are fighting over all of this. And, look, Betty White was 99. You assume you have to deal with your mortality and think about where your stuff is going to go. And she was super rich. Her estimated worth was $75 million. And that included the $10 million real estate. So it got me thinking I should probably talk to Matt Guttman again because I have had this experience with Matt. I've known Matt for over a decade. I reached out to Matt Guttman, who's the owner and attorney at Guttman Law, about an estate plan for me when I got divorced. Then when I got diagnosed, I called him again. I said, Matt, mortality is getting closer. We need to change this because I was remarried and the whole thing. And he guided me with care and compassion over the past decade plus through everything I need. And I'm actually going to his office tomorrow to sign my papers. So Matt Guttman from Guttman Law joining us on the John Schuster Coldwell Banker Hotline. Thank you for taking the time today.
Hi, Jordana. Thanks for having me on.
Now, you and I started this process when I was 38 years old. Was I one of your younger clients, or do you recommend folks start the estate plan process that young?
I actually recommend that if people think about estate planning really as early as age 18, and I know we talked about this for your daughter Marley, but once you turn 18, you're considered an adult. So your parents may be the ones who help you, but they may not be able to if they don't have the right documents. Typically, people think about estate planning when they may have their first child, when they get married, when they buy a house. Really, life events should trigger thoughts about estate planning.
We have a couple of text questions. Is that okay if I just throw them at you, Matt?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Okay, Jordana, ask Matt what his opinion is on putting money down on a pre-planned funeral, which is actually an irrevocable trust.
Well, I am a big fan of at least thinking about what you'd want to happen when you pass away as far as burial, memorial, or otherwise. So giving your loved ones guidance about what you want and what your wishes are is really great, because when you lose a loved one, it's hard enough that you're dealing with a loss, but figuring out what their wishes are is important. So when you do a prepaid funeral that would go into an irrevocable trust, you're taking a step in the right direction, and you're trying to lessen the burden on your loved ones financially. Often those types of plans will basically make it easier for your loved ones, so they're not worried about the finances. So it may be irrevocable, and there are a lot of different plans out there, so I'm not giving a blanket, they're all good, but I've seen some really terrific things, and it's made it very easy for children of clients to settle an estate without having to worry about the cost.
Yeah. And Matt has offered me creative ways. When you make a will or an estate plan, you can do with it whatever you want and put verbiage in. And Matt's definitely taught me that I have total control over what I want, and you can be very creative with it. So I don't want people to think that there's only one way to do it. That's why I like working with Matt, because not that I have so many things, so, I don't have a lot, but whatever I do have can be equitable. And then I know that it's going where I want it to go. So I appreciate your guidance on all of that, Matt. Let me ask you this question from a texter. And by the way, if you have a question for Matt Guttman, estate planning attorney, 651-461-9226. Give me a call, shoot me a text, and I'll try to get it in. This says, hi, Matt. I have a granddaughter with special needs. Family has given monetary donations for her future needs, whatever that may look like. Can you tell me what is a secure way to save this money so we can be assured it will be directed to her future needs?
That's a great question. I would say if you have a loved one who has special needs and they're certified disabled, in Minnesota, we would want to at least consider creating what's called a supplemental needs trust. And a supplemental needs trust is a special kind of trust that is created by either a parent or a grandparent, whereby you can leave money to someone who has special needs, and that money will be able to supplement what the person needs and provide additional resources without eliminating their ability to get aid from the state, which is really important, because if you have someone who has a health condition and the state is paying for their care and they inherit money in their own name, they could lose their benefits. And we never want that to happen.
That's really good advice and a good heads up. Matt, can you explain, somebody like me was different. What we created was different for me at 38 now than at 49, and because I have some different health issues. So what is the difference between an estate plan or a living will or a trust? Can you briefly explain those?
Sure. Well, an estate plan is kind of a blanket term for all the documents that your loved ones would need to take care of you, settle your estate when you're gone, and make sure your assets go to the right people at the right time. When someone does a plan when their children are young, they're usually first focused on the idea of naming a guardian. So you do a will that names guardians for your minor children, and for most parents with young kids, that's the number one concern. They want to make sure that the right people are going to take care of their kids. So as your kids get older, you sometimes transition from that concern to who's going to manage the money, how is it going to be doled out, and other things like that. So we want to make sure that your plan is flexible enough to change over time. Powers of attorney, healthcare directives, HIPAA authorization, those are incapacity documents. You're basically setting it up so someone can step into your shoes and make those kinds of decisions for you if you can't. A will is a planning document that settles someone's estate when they die, and when the document goes through probate, which is a court proceeding to settle someone's estate. A living trust is a document that's designed to also settle someone's estate, but it becomes effective when signed, so that if that person's incapacitated, they're naming a successor trustee who could take over and make financial decisions for their benefit or their loved one's benefit while they're alive, and also allow for that to be settled after they're gone.
When would you recommend someone start the process?
Well, as far as the process of estate planning, life events, again, trigger one to do this. Getting married, buying your first home, having a child. Sometimes when you lose a parent or a close friend, you would be amazed at how many people contact us when a close friend passes away, whether that friend was, 80 or that friend was 40. All of a sudden, you look at your mortality and say, you know what? I don't want to be a burden on my loved ones. I want them to have the tools they need to take care of me when the time comes.
Matt Guttman, I so appreciate what you've done for me and explaining this. And you and I have had some hard conversations. Like when you have an attorney like Matt, you have to have some hard conversations. And I always appreciate you treating me with kindness and compassion, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordana. Thanks again for having me on. And I really appreciate the opportunity to help.
You got it. And thank you, Matt. And I appreciate all the listener questions. I know it's not a fun thing to think about. And trust me, I don't want to think about it either, but I am glad that I had connected with Matt and that we had gone through everything, because I have to be an adult. You have to be a grown-up about all of this. And it does help me sleep better at night, knowing that I have documents in place and a plan in place for my kids and for my husband. So not fun things to think about, but Betty White, great job for having a written estate plan, and all of you for having those hard conversations with me. And I'm always grateful for Matt. He's from Guttman Law, guttmanlaw.com if you want to reach out. Let's take a quick